Hey there, I made these really tiny little XPS foam sofas for my Sims build. They're super basic and super easy to make, and they come out looking pretty good for the scale they are and how basic they are to make. So I hope you get something out of this one, and I do hope you enjoy the video. I've cut a piece of XPS foam to the dimensions that I roughly want the little lounges to be. Always make it slightly bigger because I know I can sand it down if it's too big. I use a coffee stirrer to make my dimensions, so that way I know everything is going to be as uniform as possible, which will allow for mistakes. And just mark it out and then very carefully cut it. It takes a little while to cut this because you have to insert the knife, a very, very sharp blade, in a way so you won't pull and drag the foam because it builds up static depending on how it's been extruded. And if you get that build up, it will tear. So nice and gently, and that's fairly tidy, to be honest. It's not too bad at all. And I just tidy it up a little bit more with a file. It only needs a feather touch to do this, just to pull away the little lumpy bits. I'm going to have cushions anyway, so you're not going to really see it. I just want it to be nice and even. That's the important part. Just get it nice and flat. XPS foam can be a little fiddly sometimes, but it's such an excellent medium to use. It's worth the mucking around. That is good enough. Very, very gently sand it. I'm almost not touching it at all, just to even everything out, get rid of my pencil marks, and yeah. That's why I always make everything just a tiny bit too big. Sand down the corners and the edges so they're nice and just slightly rounded, just to take that really hard edge off. Again, I'm barely touching this at all because it will drag it off. You'll be super, super careful. That's quite nice. I need to smooth it down a little bit more. I'm going to use just this soft, you could use a pencil or something, just it's soft and rounded, so I can just, I'm like ironing out the interior and the edges. This is what I love about the foam. You can do so many things to sculpt it and shape it. I've just got some more pieces that I've cut with a hot wire cutter for the cushions. The bottom is going to be a bit thicker than the top. When I was playing around with it, making my little test ones, I realised that the bottom one needs to be thicker, and I rounded it slightly as well. There's something about the way this looks with the dimensions. The bottom cushion needs to be thicker than the back. That's my best explanation. A little mark down the middle to divide the cushion and pop it in. You have to play around with it a little bit, but you get there with it. And just a little piece for the back. Each one I cut individually because I couldn't figure out the measurements and how to do it, so I just cut it until it was correct and sanded it down, made a little mark down the middle. Just a gentle edging just to slightly soften the edges on it. If you only have to make one or two, you don't need to worry too much about trying to figure out the dimensions and measurements. Just eyeball it. It works well enough. These are my test ones that I created. I thought I'd paint them up because I didn't want to go painting the blue ones without knowing how they were going to look. I didn't want to ruin them or have to add extra layers of paint to lose the dimensions. So I did these test ones up, so I could position them around and see if they actually worked in the room. And I found that the red ones just seemed to do the right thing. They worked. I'm not good with these sorts of things, but that's why I had to experiment and make sure it wasn't going to be wrong. I threw them into my brown acrylic watered down wash. Of course, I glued the cushions down and let them dry overnight too, so they're really, really dry, with a water-based glue. It's like a scene from Titanic. The door. Go back! You give them a good soak. That little pillow. This will really get into the little grooves and the nooks and crannies of the lounge, and it does something to dimension so it doesn't look completely flat, because I did like the blue, but it looked really flat even though it's a three-dimensional object. It's hard to kind of explain it, but I'm sure you know exactly what I mean. After they've had a nice little bit of a soak, you can just pop them on a tray to dry. There's that little corner table I did as well. They look super grungy after they've been soaked, but I just really had to knock that blue out of there. And I'm going to put some very heavy layer of red. I didn't mean to put that much on, but oops. I just worked it off. I mean, the key thing is don't go getting brush strokes all over it. I did end up doing 2 coats of this too, because it's darker underneath, so it helps pull back that red, the brightness of the red, which is another thing I wanted too. I don't want super standout strong colours, so that's why I always put a brown layer on everything before I paint it, just to ensure that it's not going to look crazy colourful. That's a bit better, that one, without so much paint on the brush. You can also see all those little gaps and things that were caused by the brown soak, so it's not all exactly the same colour, and you certainly can't see the blue underneath it. The little cushions, I decided to go with green. I had one green one and one blue one, but the blue looked completely strange. There's a lot of green going on in this diorama. They look quite good. Good thing is, you make any sort of mistakes, you can use the cushions to hide them. I like it. And my little Sims. Oh, they're funky looking, but they're hard to paint. They're these little cheap things you get off the internet. You get like 100 of them for $10. But they're good. They'll do as my Sims. They're not bad little lounges. I don't mind them. They look excellent in black or brown because they look like leather. So I like that. And these are my itty bitty sofa / lounges. I think they look really good, especially for the scale that they are. They're so tiny. And they're going to look really nice on the diorama, which is the important part. I'm not going to glue them down until much later in the project. But yeah, they look great. I can really see where it's going now with these. I like them very much. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I do hope to see you next time.